Good evening. It's 7 p.m. on Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. My name is Jesse Lemanik. I'm the clerk for the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to call tonight's Board of Selectmen meeting to order. First up on tonight's agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us in the recitation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up is public forum. Public forum is limited to 5 minutes per topic. Discussion or comments about town employees or agency members shall be avoided so as not to violate individuals' rights. Is there anyone here this evening for public forum?
Hi, my name is
Oh,
Carol.
do you want to do us a favor? Just come sit down in front of the microphone. Just let us know who you are and give us your address.
Okay, my name is Carol Gogolinsky, and I'm the owner of property on Lackey Dam Road in Sutton. I don't live in Sutton any longer. Grew up my entire life there, and possibility that I'm doing over a house, I might move back there. But the reason that I'm here is because I'm aware that there's some rezoning that's going on down in that South Sutton section. And I don't have a problem with, obviously, every town in Sutton, we need to get as much tax revenue as we can, and so we need to bring these things in. But my concern is that there was a 100-foot buffer zone when it was the office and light industry. They've brought that down to 50 feet, and then it depends on where they decide the zoning is, because that Lackey Dam Road itself is like a 60-foot right-of-way. So if it's on the other side of the street, now you've really got like 10 feet. So that's the concern I have. And the other concern I have is that this has gone through, and not one single person down in that area is aware of it. No one is aware of it, because you may put it in this Millbury Chronicle, but people in South Sutton do not get the Millbury Chronicle. I don't know if it was in the Millbury Chronicle. But, you know, I think that it's been kind of sped through pretty quickly, and I think that buffer zone should definitely not be brought down to a 50-foot. Especially when you're gonna be allowing 60-foot high buildings. But, you know, obviously trees aren't 60 feet high, but if they're close to you, you won't see the 60-foot buildings. And so I guess that is what I have to say. And my feeling is that no one knows about it now, as of this moment. They will know about it. And the last thing you need to have is all these people showing up and voting the whole thing down. Because you know you need a 2/3 for zoning things, so it doesn't take too many to vote it down. So I don't know if you people have the ability. I know that evidently the planning board has already concluded their hearings. I don't know if you have the ability to bring that back to the 100 feet or not.
Generally speaking, all of the boards in town are allowed to propose articles for the warrant that's going to go before a town meeting. We, as a board, we don't necessarily have direct authority over planning to that degree, but I would suggest, and I know she's here this evening, I would go down a few doors and talk to the town planner. Her name's Jen Hager. Maybe she can give you a little more insight in terms of where we're going with the process.
Okay. I know that you're gonna be voting on the warrant tonight, I believe, right?
Well, all we're going to do is we're going to get a preview. We're just getting a draft
Just a
tonight.
preview of it.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And just so the public at home knows, we as a board, we don't approve the different articles. All we do is approve presenting it to town meeting.
Right.
So we're gonna get Jim Smith, the town manager, is gonna give us an overview of the different articles. And then when it comes before us again, I believe at our next meeting, all we are gonna do is vote in entirety. Yes, we're gonna present it, or no. But
And your next meeting is on what date?
it is the first Tuesday in October, which I believe is October 1st.
And the town meeting is what date that this is gonna be voted on?
This would be the
21st.
21st of October.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The other thing, if you want, is Pat is the chairman of FinCom, the Finance and Warrant Committee. I believe tomorrow evening, your board will also be going over the warrant in presentation form. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so if for anyone in the community that's concerned, that would like to come in and sit in to learn a little more, I mean, obviously, we're gonna go over the warrant tonight, but with all the articles for town meeting, but, you know, FinCom will be on TV or 6:30? 6:30 tomorrow evening.
Thank you.
All right.
I just have one other point is when we get presented tonight,
Right.
the articles, like, we can ask some questions around the 100-foot versus the 50-foot buffer, just to get some clarity for everybody.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, is there anyone here else for public forum? All right, seeing none, why don't we move forward and address the minutes from the September 3rd, 2019 Board of Selectmen meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second that.
All right, hearing a motion and second. Any further comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. All right, first on our agenda items is we're going to be dealing with the Oakhurst pilot agreement, which is the second solar array. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is still the same company, Nexamp, that did the first solar array on Oakhurst Road. This is a solar array adjacent to the existing solar array. Still the same company. Their name is Sutton Solar 2 LLC. Sutton Solar 1 is probably their first project. It's a 1.1 megawatt facility. It was passed unanimously at May town meeting. There are also 2 other pilot agreements that are still being drafted. We hired Chris Reedy, who's the assessor in Shrewsbury, to write the pilot agreements and draft them. They've gone back and forth between the businesses in the town, and this one was the first one to reach agreement. Again, it's a 20-year period. The town will receive $13,750 in revenue, essentially personal property. We still get property tax for the land itself, but this is in addition to the property tax, and it's a 20-year agreement.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Why don't we open it up for questions, if there are any? Jonathan?
No, this is pretty straightforward and pretty clear, so I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Jim, I just had a question on it's $12,500 per megawatt. Is that a standard
It is.
charge throughout the state, or throughout the area at least?
It's hard for me to know whether it's a standard throughout the state. I think it's certainly a standard within this region. Chris Reedy, we used to have a different person draft the pilot agreements. Chris Reedy is a new hire, and he compared pilot agreements to surrounding towns. So the 12,500 is pretty much the standard in this area.
That is it.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. And this is an item, as Jim had mentioned, that has already been approved by town meeting, so I have no questions or no issues. So that being said, it looks like we have a motion on the table.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the chairman of the board to sign the pilot agreement with Nexamp Sutton and Sutton Solar 2 LLC on Oakhurst Road as approved at the 2019 May town meeting.
Second?
All right, thank you. I heard a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. All right, the next item on our agenda is a conservation restriction approval for Leland Hill Estates. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an old agreement. It goes back to when we first approved the Leland Hill comprehensive permit through the zoning board, et cetera. The agreement back then was that we would permanently restrict a number of units as well as present a conservation restriction on a lot of the open space down there. So this is following through and getting this done. Apparently it's approximately 30 acres. We've worked with the developer, John Burns, his attorney, Stephen Rotalakis, and the state of Massachusetts to produce the final permanent preservation restriction on this property. We are requesting the board sign this conservation restriction, and that's essentially it. It's permanently, perpetually restricted at this point, if it goes through all the approvals.
Excellent, thank you. Jonathan?
This is pretty clear. I mean, this is just an open space subdivision that when you give up some open space, you can condense the units down into smaller lot sizes. And as part of that agreement, there's open space that's given up, and this is just the follow through to put that into a conservation restriction so that land stays open the number of years that it's been assigned for. So this makes absolute sense to me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
I'm all set. It is straightforward, so.
All right, thank you very much. As am I. This was presented to us in different forms and pieces for multiple years. This is not anything new, and this is just kind of one of the last pieces to bring this project to conclusion. So I definitely appreciate your explanation, Jim, as well as Jonathan. So, all right. As there are no other concerns at this moment, I would entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the conservation restriction for 3 parcels of land totaling 29.6 acres at Leland Hill Estates.
Second?
All right, here in a motion and second. Any last questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 3-0. All right, and now for the big event of the evening. We're going to be going through a draft of the fall town meeting warrant. Jim?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just give me a second to get
Sure, take your time.
organized. This is for the meeting, the fall town meeting to take place on the 21st day of October. This is just the draft presenting to the board. The finance public hearing is actually tomorrow night. A little early, for my liking necessarily. A lot of these items are still a work in progress, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But I think we'll be able to present enough to the finance committee, and if we need to, we can continue it either to next week or some period soon to get their final recommendations on these warrant articles. Article number 1 and Article number 2 are cleanup from the Maytown meeting. Article number 1 is we received less state aid. The final number that was approved was less than we had from the governor's presentation. And that, a large reason behind that is that the governor actually decreased the school choice out. I'm unaware of how this happened and why he did it. Last year's actual number was $132,000, roughly $132,000. His preliminary budget was $101,000, so he cut it by $30,000. So I don't know what he thought he knew, or I don't know whether he had any insight that didn't end up coming out, because the actual number was $131,883. So it was very close to the actual number from 2019. If he had just not cut it in his presentation on the state aid numbers, we'd be in decent shape. Instead, we have to cut our state aid by $10,000, or that's not the exact number, it's $10,495. So we are looking to use new growth to make up that number, as well as adding additional money for salaries and wages. And that, though the salary and wages increase are coming because of the recent change in the treasurer's office. I increased the assistant collector salary by $5,000. She's now the assistant collector, assistant treasurer. And I increased Erin Chinapi, who is was just the payroll clerk. She now is the HR director for the town, still does payroll. But I increased her hours by 10, and her salary goes up $22,000. So that is the impact of those changes, and that's all reflected with this article.
And just on a quick assumption, I'm assuming there's a little breathing room within the new growth numbers that we have certified.
Yeah, the new growth number right now, we budgeted $150,000. I've been told by the assessor that we can expect at least, the latest today was $325,000 in new growth. So that's $175,000 additionally in new growth that we are expecting. So, it's still a moving target. Something could change with DOR and the report back, the recap and so forth. But right now we're good.
But in terms of the hit that we're taking, you have enough, you're more than comfortable
Yes.
with that? Okay, excellent, thank you.
Yeah. So that's Article number 1. Article number 2 is to amend the capital plan that was approved at Maytown meeting. And basically what we plan on doing is essentially replacing free cash with new growth. Just another one-time revenue source. And obviously it allows us to use up the additional new growth. The plan right now is to budget $125,000 in new growth. That should come close to what, 160? So, you know, these numbers are, you know, tentative, but close to final. But, you know, it's still, we've got a couple of weeks to work them out before you sign the final warrant. But that's normal that we use new growth in this way. Article number 3 is to address the OPEB liability. And per the Board of Selectmen's policy, we are appropriating 10% of free cash, and the revenue from the Town Farm cell tower, Town Farm Road cell tower. So right now, we're anticipating roughly $235,000. Again, that's a rough number. Free cash hasn't been certified by DOR yet. We do have the revenue from the cell tower. It's roughly $37,000. So, you know, so those of you that can do the math can probably figure out that we are looking at a pretty substantial free cash number this year. A lot of it, again, is created by one-time circumstances. You know, we did get a lot of increases in local receipts, particularly the building department. We budget roughly $90,000 a year in revenue. They brought in over $300,000 a year in permit fees. And then we have, obviously, Prime Metals is probably the largest recipient of those returns, and we've also had a number of new buildings, residential houses coming into the town as well. So investment income, we just built the police station, and that investment income has been invested aggressively by Lisa Trost, the former treasurer. And obviously we had a lot more money to invest because we had the receipts from the borrowing for the police station. So we can go into more depth on free cash when we get to that point, but that's just a little explanation of that.
Excellent, thank you.
Article number 4 is reserved for bad bills. We don't have any as of yet. Tim's been doing a nice job making sure that he encumbers last minute 2019 bills. It's hard to figure out the fiscal year we're in, but nothing yet. We may still receive a bill that was due in fiscal year 19, but we don't have, you know, obviously we've closed the books and we have to move on. Article number 5 is to address the situation that exists down at Stevens Pond Dam. We've got a proposal from Weston and Sampson, who does our dam reports every 2 years. This is a high hazard dam, and it leaks. There's a leak down there. We can't define where this leak is coming from, so Weston and Sampson has submitted a proposal. Maximum cost is $16,500. There's steps 1 through 5. If the problem is identified in step 1 and we feel confident, then we don't have to pay steps 2 through 5. So this is the worst case scenario, but we are asking for $16,500. It has to deal with the low level outlet on that dam, and that's below water, and it's really difficult to know without damming it up and having somebody go in with the appropriate equipment and define what the issue is.
Will the pond of water that's behind it have to be drawn down to identify it, or?
To be honest, I don't know the methods and the means to how they're going to do this. There is a report that I have in front of me that's, you know, fairly lengthy, but it's their job as consultants to identify what the issue is. And obviously, this is really the first step, and once we identify the issue, then we'll probably have to go to Maytown meeting for the capital plan and look for money to repair the issue, whatever the issue is.
That was my question. The 16.5 is just their services to do the assessment, but,
Yes.
but we're not maxed out in repair cost.
No, it really depends on what the repair would be. If it's a simple fix, then, we'll do a small capital item. If it's a bigger problem, then we'll address that. I'll obviously address that to the board.
Yeah, I'm good. Makes sense.
Thank you.
Article number 6 is to address Woodbury Pond Dam. I'm sure the board is well aware of that situation, that the board, actually a wooden board, gave way in the low-level outlet, the essentially breached the dam. There was really no downstream impacts on this, so that's a positive. And now we have, essentially a body of water. It's a stream, that's where we are right now. But to fix the dam, we're required to do a number of reports and analysis, and that cost would be roughly, upwards of $50,000 to do that. So we do have a meeting Thursday with Galaxy, because they have an interest in restoring the body of water. There's not a lot of value to a warm water pond, and at the same point, the state is breaching dams across the Commonwealth. So it's sort of inconsistent with the state's policy and Office of Dam Safety. Yet if there's a reason why we want to keep this pond for, commercial or, condo development, waterfront property, that's a whole nother matter. But that means that we need some cost sharing from Galaxy to do this work. There's no intrinsic value to doing this. There's positives and negatives on both sides, but certainly the downstream impact has been addressed. There was no downstream impact. No longer can we just drop a board in, replace the board, and be done with it.
Right.
Now we have to go through, Weston and Sampson and other consultants to do an analysis. Office of Dam Safety requires you to, when you do the replacement, that you hire a consultant to oversee construction of whatever you're replacing. So it's just a huge encumbrance, and I'm looking for another party, Galaxy Development, to share in the cost of this. So right now it's a placeholder. We will get the final numbers obviously before town meeting. Hopefully I have more information by October 1st.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Article number 7 is to address the LED lights on Gilmore Drive. This is still a work in progress. I am awaiting National Grid's final report on the existence of conduits and all the other infrastructure for the LED lights. We're also waiting on a final quote from our LED installer, PRT, that we hired out of Wakefield. They come in and do all the LED lights replacement as well as the arms. But again, I need another week of work on this particular article to figure out what that impact might be.
Now, considering the fact that the Gilmore Drive development is now complete in term of ownership, will the lights go all the way down to IBA's facility, or it will stop near?
No, they'll go to New England Disposal.
Okay.
And there are 4 lights that are dispersed throughout the park. And my assumption is Prime Metals and IBA will provide
Their
light
own,
to
yeah.
their areas. But again, this is a 13-year commitment that the previous administration entered into. We're just trying to, keep to that original agreement back in 2006. Article number 8 is, this is additional costs for planning the sewer project. As the board knows, this was originally a two-phase project. Over the summer months, we decided to do one phase from the villas down to the school department. As they were, and always have been, the ultimate goal of this plan is to take the school department off their wastewater treatment plant that is aging and needs to be replaced shortly. We're looking for roughly $70,000. That's coming out of sewer connection fees. There's probably close to $1 million in that account. And that's sort of like, it's another retained earnings within the sewer department, available resources.
Just a quick question. on
Sure,
that.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Those costs have been incurred already. These aren't additional.
Not necessarily. I think on-site still has some additional work to do.
Okay.
The well has not been dug by McClure as of yet. He has to go to the Board of Health for meet with them and talk about what the plan is to do. And so, these are costs that we're going to incur.
And I would assume if the full costs of what we appropriate are not used, whatever's left will be poured back in.
Exactly. Article number 9 is fees for the Conservation Commission. Jen? And/or Joyce. Joyce is too wordy, so maybe we can just kind of.
It's the first time I didn't get that. Joyce and I have been working to clean up portions of her regulation for a bit. If you've read the Concom regs, you'll notice that the fee section is a little super wordy. So what we've done here is pretty much just clean up the fee schedule basically to one page. So if you're an applicant and or even a new commissioner, you have, these are the fees you're gonna pay, these are the exact fees, these are what they can be used for, this is the source of the fees, and it's all just very neatly packaged. And of course, the actual number of the fee is defined in the rules and regulations for the commission, which is a separate document. So all it does is clean up the fee section, and then the chairman of the finance committee made a nice suggestion to add 3 words just into the first line. At the time of an application, the applicant shall pay the following fees as listed below. Boom, 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 boom. So we're adding those 3 words to this article as well.
Excellent.
So that's that first one, so cleaning up.
I just want to mention that these different fee schedules, it was kind of real confusing in the prior edition. So we had worked on this last spring, and then the new members didn't quite understand it, so now they do. So we voted to include this, and we think it makes it much more readable and understandable for anyone who wants to read it.
Right, or use it.
Now, in terms of the fees themselves, they're all gonna be clearly outlined somewhere, so that way anyone who's gonna come before the
They're in
board.
the rules and regulations. There are basically 4 fees. The consultant fee is a different schedule, and any money that's collected for that is not used is returned back once they have a certificate of compliance.
So it's almost like a temporary lien, in a sense.
Yes. The Wetlands Protection Act funds part goes to the state, part goes to the town. They realized early on that they do not collect fees for RDAs, for NOI, for ANRADs, and so there wasn't enough money to make it self-sufficient, because the Wetlands Protection Act, that is under the regulation of on the DEP.
You can only use those fees to administer and enforce things directly related to the WPA. You can't use it for things that are not specific to that. So you needed this supplemental monies to handle RDAs and ANRADs, where you don't even get any fee at all, but you also need some more monies to do everything else the commission does in terms of training, public education, you name it, because you can't use wetland fees for that.
So the municipal filing fees are what
Cover
we
that.
collect for that and cover that. So that's what we passed last spring, and so those are the fees that are gonna be listed below into the rules and regulations.
and then your legal ad fee. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Perfect.
And the,
Seems very clean, concise.
We tried.
we tried, yes.
So the next bylaw change is just reducing the, adjacent upland resource area for a great pond. So it goes from 200 to 100.
All right, I do, and I know this is probably not the board to ask the question, and you know, shame on myself for not going to Concom where this was brought up, but I missed it. Why are we gonna make that decision? We have so many great ponds in Sutton, it seems to me kind of odd that we're gonna be limiting or at least allowing encroachment upon these great ponds themselves.
It was brought up at the meeting 2 weeks ago, at the very end of the meeting, because we had to approve these to get on the time limit for the next day. It was a 3-2 vote, and I was one of the dissenters. So I would like
And the wrong
personally to see, to see it stay the 100 feet,
Or 200.
200 feet, excuse me, because the perennial streams have a 200-foot jurisdiction anyway. And if it's perennial lakes, why doesn't it have the 200 feet? And it's much easier to prevent than to, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I guess I should say. So I was one of the dissenters, but,
So the members that were in favor, they just thought it was too strict?
yes, they're all
It took in
Property
too
owners.
much area.
property owners on the lakes too.
Oh, okay.
So it was
Weird.
split 3-2.
Well, you know, from my personal concern, I think of it as a mental image or an exercise that I used to show my students back when I taught middle school. In that if you have a clean piece of paper, it's a clean piece of paper. But the moment you write on it, it's written on it. So my concern, if we're gonna make this type of change, it, in all likelihood, will have significant impact on those great bodies of water that we have in town that so many residents enjoy. So I'm hoping that maybe tomorrow night, the fact that it wasn't a unanimous decision, maybe that gets addressed. Again, just so people can contemplate and think more closely about this significant change.
Unfortunately, our meeting tomorrow night is the same time as yours, so we will be down the hall.
Oh. Oh, Pat,
Um,
burden's on you.
Yeah,
Well, we'll still have conservation representation. It might be the chairman. of the-
Chairman or, right, somebody.
So the next one is just cleaning up. It's cleaning up the revolving funds. So you'll see things like the highway department now handles public shade tree issues, not the planning department. Jim is the town manager, not the town administrator, and making wording more consistent in terms of, wages and expenses, and being very clear about the two different conservation revolving accounts that we spoke of. You can't commingle Wetlands Protection Act fees with local bylaw fees. They need to be in separate accounts. So we're just being very clear on the wording. So we're not changing the intent of anything. It's really just making some changes that needed to be made, and just being clear about particularly those two Conservation Commission revolving accounts.
I'd like to talk about the fact that it reads kind of similar for the two conservation ones. The first one is the Wetlands Protection Act, and so that comes from the state fees. And the wording on the right, what it can be used for, is what we were changing in this
Right.
previous
So you'll
one,
see
to
consistency.
make it consistent to what the state allows them to be used for. In the previous bylaw, it just said to use for consultants. So, we wanted to make it match with what the state allows. The second one on the chart is the municipal fees, the local fees that we charge. So those are the, they read very similar, but it's the source of the money that's different.
And what you can use it for.
They are pretty close, except there is
Yes.
one significant word difference. Is there a reason why enforcement is left out of the second?
No, it should be added in, and I emailed Jim that, it should be enforcement on the second one
Yeah,
also.
it's probably just a typo.
It's a typo.
Okay.
So it should be the same with both. You can use the monies the same, it's just the source is different, and it has to be in those two different accounts. You can't commingle the accounts, which is what they were before.
Okay,
Yes, so
thank you.
it should say administration and enforcement, including wages and expenses. I'll make sure that typo is fixed. Thank
Great, I
you.
appreciate that. Before we get too further, I know we're going at a quick pace, but do either of you have any questions or concerns?
I'm good.
Okay, John?
No, I mean, just going back to Article 10, it's just really concerning. Didn't get a chance to share that, but, I don't know.
Do you want to, while we're here, do you want to make any comments?
I just think that, I know when I'm in a butter to a that I have to step down, and it feels like that if you're on a board and you're discussing an item, that you're within the buffer range, or if whatever's happening, that you should recuse yourself at that point in time. So it just seems concerning that this kind of falls down the lines of, people who voted for this change or want people that live on the lake. So it's just kind of an overall concern of mine as I sit here and contemplate it. So it's probably no conflict of interest, but it's a concern.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Article number 12, Jen.
All right, number 12. So these next three articles are changes to our continued care retirement community bylaw, otherwise known as our over 55 bylaw. If you're familiar with the bylaw, this promotes a range of housing from independent living to assisted living to nursing care, but not a nursing home like a medical facility. We had hoped, as was the model when we adopted this, that these communities would contain a mix of those uses. So as your needs age over time, you're not displaced from the community. But we've made it so flexible that you can pick and choose and mix and match. And the market obviously drives these things, and the market is really calling for active adult living right now. With some accommodations and some conveniences to definitely help you stay longer in a unit as you age. So that's the only, we have Wedgewood Farm, that was just recently approved, that's a CCRC, that's all independent living. All of those do have first floor masters, and there are various things that are gonna be great as you age, but there is obviously no advanced level of care in that development. So, these three changes. The first one, we are eliminating the prohibition on people under the age of 18 from living in an over 55 community. Why would you do that? The reason we would do that is because this bylaw requires that 10% minimum, and we're asking in this subsequent article to go to 15% minimum, be HUD affordable units. So, and the state has a policy that if you specifically say the words, nobody under the age of 18 may live in this development, if you say that in your bylaws, you can't count any of your affordable units that you produce. Obviously, at 1.5% of the 10% we're otherwise supposed to have, the board feels it's very affordable that when we create very important that when we create these units, we be allowed to count them. We're not overly concerned about the impacts of this because we did study the existing 2-bedroom condominium developments that have existed in town for years. And of the 3, at the villas, the town clerk's office reports that there are no individuals under the age of 18 living there permanently. At Woodburyville Heights, there are 4 people under the age of 18 living in 80 units there. And at Forest Edge, they're at an all-time high of 13 people under the age of 18. It's really kind of the bedroom numbers. All of those are at least 2. I don't think there's any 3s. These are all 1s and 2s, CCRCs. And once you go away from a standalone or a condominium unit to congregate, they're all 1s. So, so the board was not concerned with eliminating this. The benefit of eliminating it so we can count the subsidized housing units is much higher than any potential risk.
Can I ask a question on that, Jen?
Yep.
So, I see the benefit for this particular project that you're talking about. What about future projects?
What's the benefit? Well,
In terms of, you say there's gonna be no one under 18, or very few under 18.
So this bylaw restricts all CCRCs to a max of 2-bedroom. So all continued care developments are a max of 2 bedrooms. So say another one was proposed, and our bylaw would have this, you couldn't restrict under the age of 18, you're still capped at 2 bedrooms. So no matter what project it is, because of the nature of the CCRC bylaw limiting bedrooms to no more than 2, we're just not worried. We have a history of 2-bedroom developments where they just don't produce kids.
Okay.
We just don't produce big numbers in 2-bedroom units. So I did mention the existing project, which I probably won't do again because it's not at all germane to that. I was just using that as an example. This is any CCRC. Can't be age restricted. And here's the deal, neither can their master deed. That all has to be submitted. But they will still be marketing this as an over 55, unlike the villas, unlike Woodburyville Heights, unlike Forest Edge.
So just by advertising alone, the fact that it's advertised as over 55 may naturally mitigate
Exactly.
any potential buyers from trying to,
Yeah.
I don't want to say sneak in, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it may mitigate it, and even if it's not, we already have 3 longstanding examples where the very structure of the unit just isn't conducive to too many kids.
Now, by the nature of this type of community, would they be allowed to make localized rules in terms of like noise ordinance or other type of enforcement measures? So in the chance that some families move in with children, it won't have a disparate impact upon the seniors who decide to be their
Absolutely.
neighbors.
Yeah, the master deed can address any of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I believe at least 2 of our 3 condominium develops actually have a section on kind of nuisances within their communities already.
Call me old-fashioned, but I like those checks and balances. Thank you.
I have a question in regards to, if this is really being restricted now by the number of bedrooms, do we even need to call out an age restriction? Because right in here you say, said development shall be limited to persons at least one of whom is in each household shall have attended an age of 55 years. I mean, do we even care about that at this point in time?
Well, we didn't want to make you with too much, put it that way. And there is a need, as we've talked about ad infinitum on demographics, to really promote housing for over 55 for retirees and older within our community, because that demographic's getting larger. And there is, some desire to, because there is so much family housing and availability of different types of projects that serve specifically families and do produce children, that we didn't see it really a downside, though we didn't discuss it at length, on whether we should just eliminate the over 55 altogether. So we didn't have that discussion, but just on the face of it, I don't think there's, I guess if you eliminate the over 55, then it's kind of almost just a condo bylaw, so.
Yeah, but then it just is kind of then on the developer to decide how they want to market it,
Yeah.
right? But really, if we can't limit them by age, I don't really see the point in even having age in here, because it's really about the 2 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms have a tendency to reduce the number of people who have
Yeah, well,
people under age
you
18.
can't eliminate an entire class. What we are saying is at least one has to be 55. So the other one could be any age, and now we're just saying that other one could be under the age of 18. So
Well, I
you
think
could
this
be-
addresses the reality in society that there are times when grandparents raise young children.
Oh, absolutely.
So they would be able to
They could do that.
move in.
They could
And
do
it
that.
actually might be beneficial
Right.
for that particular family to be in this
Yeah.
type of environment.
And if we make that shift to over 55, then we just kind of need to think the bylaw, it's a retirement, continued care retirement bylaw. So I think you do want to kind of maybe not fully restrict anything, but you want to target a certain demographic with it. Because that's what it's for. So.
Article 13.
Article 13, we want to jump the 10% to 15%.
Sorry.
Again, you guys know we're way low, 1.5 out of 10. This housing form has few impacts on the community, and we'd like to try to make up, not just within continued care, but maybe within standard condominiums and some other forms of housing as we move forward in time, increase that affordability requirement up a little bit, probably no more than 15%, but that is the suggestion here, to kind of catch up a little bit and to encourage more affordability in this over 55 form of housing. 14 is Again,
Jen, can I just interrupt?
Sure.
Did the planning board have their public hearing?
Yeah.
So do you have the results
I
as
do
to
have
how
the
the planning board
results.
voted on these
yeah,
articles?
and I wanna be clear, starting with this next article, that, we've had one or two calls with concerns on one or two of these bylaws, that people just didn't hear about the hearing or whatever. And this next bylaw, the board wanted to discuss some more after some input from council. So even though we voted our recommendations, and I will tell you those recommendations, basically the board voted 5-0-0 to recommend all of these that are on here. The only one they did not recommend, they made a motion to table. They said until spring town meeting, but never fear, it might not be spring, the cottage housing bylaw. So that was the only one they did not recommend 5-0-0. They recommended 5-0-0 to just table that, and in the words of the chairman, to put that cookie back in the oven to bake a little longer. So, if you know Bob, that's classic. So all the rest were 5-0-0s. So, but we may reconsider one or two of these on Monday night, based on some concerns and some people that, like the Hutnicks, that'll be coming in and asking some questions. So, that being said, this next article, again, back to the nature of the continued care retirement community, it's meant to provide you housing as you age. So, and during the last project we reviewed under this bylaw, all we had is goodwill to request that the developer make all bedrooms first floor masters on the first floor masters on the first floor. All we had was goodwill to ask the developer that one of the entrances into the building be a level entrance, that interior doorways be 32 inches, that one exterior door be 36 inches, things that are critical in terms of what you need in terms of basic design of your house as you age over time. So I did discuss this with the building commissioner, and he is the one that recommended or was worried about if that kind of conflicts with code or anything like that, and said, why don't you just, instead of picking and choosing, why don't you just say a certain percentage has to meet the architectural access code. So on his recommendation, that is the way we went. I have since talked to council and talked to at least one builder who said, you need to understand this access code is not for things. This is significant money onto the price of a unit. You just need to understand that. And so the board's gonna discuss this a little more. If they wanna just go back to that list of basic things that they think need to be included in every unit, instead of saying a quarter of everything in any one of these developments has to meet this full code, which can then jack up the price of a unit and cause all of the, all of some of the negative things in terms of building more of these or building more units within these developments. So we might have some adjustments to this language after Monday night. So, any questions on that one?
I don't know. I kind of like the idea, because isn't that kind of the point? You want to make units that are accessible.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why it jumped in my head, but I'm thinking the 1970 split ranch.
Mm-hmm.
That would almost be defeatist.
Mm-hmm.
If that was going to go in. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I'll look forward to what planning has to say on that one.
Absolutely. Anything else on that one?
Yeah, I'm in the same camp with that one. I think it's, or at least spelling out what's most important, maybe not the whole set of code, but at
Yeah,
least.
which is where this draft was. It had like 6 items that we thought were key. Just so you know, the chairman has hooked me up with Mike Kennedy, who, if you know who Mike Kennedy is, he works for the Greater Living Center in Worcester. He's an ADA advocate statewide. And so I did leave a message with Mike. I haven't heard from him back yet, but I want to talk to him. I want to talk to a guy that's on the ground and say, what are your thoughts? You do this all day, every day. You deal with people in living situations. So that was an awesome suggestion by the chairman. So we're going to be taking advantage of that expertise. So hopefully I'll hear from him tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be a good opportunity for clear advocacy.
Absolutely.
Because I understand that we want the builders to come to town to build, but we're not in the town of working for the builders per se.
No.
We're trying to take
No,
care
it's
of our
not
residents, so.
It's not about helping the builders, it's about making sure that you don't impose something that makes a type of development so unaffordable that you
Right.
just don't get it. You just don't get the development, because you do need the development, so. Alrighty, the next one is just putting in writing the current practice of the boards in terms of the definition of use principle. The board considers parking that is required for a use to be part of the principal use. You can't operate a store without the required parking for the store. So this is just putting this in writing. And it's important for things like the principal use can't be located within so many feet of the property line, you know, those kind of things. So that's all number 15 does. Number 16 and the numerous articles thereafter are the creation of a brand new lovely multi-town mixed commerce district. We have been approached by a potential proponent, a well-known building firm, the town, it's already working in the town on large projects. And they have 2 Fortune 500 companies that would like to locate warehouse and distribution in Sutton, particularly in South Sutton. And they asked, we met with them, Uxbridge and Douglas, because this particular proposal would affect all 3 of those towns. We've recently pulled Northbridge into the group because even though these aren't located in Northbridge, they have potential effect on Northbridge because all the 4 towns come together in South Sutton. They would like to add that use. Their original request was to add that use to all office light industrial districts in town. And as you know, we don't just have OLI in South Sutton, we have it in Northeast Sutton. And I'm sure you can picture with the tenuous, currently workable intersection at Boston Road and 146, that if you did a significant warehouse distribution facility on, say, the aggregate parcel, you would kill that intersection. It's limited capacity. So when they suggested that, we said, no, that's not gonna work, because we're not going to defeat everything we've accomplished in Northeast Sutton in terms of retail development and to mess up that whole intersection. So as we were all sitting there talking, as you know, we had the 4-town group for 20 years now, the planners and administrators working in that district. And one of the planners suggested that, you know, this is distinct in that all 4 towns come together, that properties, a lot of them stretch over town lines and need to, so why don't we consider a new district that's the same or very similar in those towns. Well, obviously, we have the Route 146 overlay. That was an effort at that. Millbury adopted it, Northbridge adopted it, Sutton adopted it, Uxbridge and Douglas did not. But it's the same kind of effort. So pretty much, because Sutton was going first, Fletcher Chilton, who represent the potential developers, their land use team drafted this set of different bylaws you see here. And then we took it to the planning board, and we talked about different things, uses, heights, requests, and these next few articles are a result of that discussion. So that first article is just to rezone the office light industrial area in South Sutton, anything that's south of Whitens Road, and anything that's south of Main Street in Northbridge, or the town line, which is just south of Main Street in Northbridge. All that's currently office light industrial, just change that over to multi-town mixed commerce, okay? And then, so that's all that first article does. It's just the rezoning itself. That's Article 16. Article 17, whenever you create a new district, you have to add the name of the district to the list. So this is kind of the housekeeping that goes along with creating a district. So Article 17 is literally part of the housekeeping of creating the district. Article 18 is kind of the meat of the district. These are establishing the permitted, special permitted, and prohibited uses. If you take a look at that use table, you'll see it's almost identical to the office light industrial uses. A few uses have been changed from special permit to permitted, like business and professional offices. Stores selling goods to the public, restaurants. The planning board has prohibited large-scale solar from this area. And you'll see warehouse and distribution was added as a special permit by the planning board. The proponents requested this be added as a permitted as of right use, and the board was not comfortable with that. Warehouse distribution can take any number of sizes. It can have significant impacts. They felt it was important to have the power of a special permit for review, though they did make it by the planning board, so it doesn't add time to the process, basically. It's just an additional layer. So, this is kind of the meat of what would be allowed in the multi-town mixed commerce district in terms of uses. And then Article 19 gives you the lot area requirements that match the office light industrial. Article 20 is a little bit more of the nuance of the district. Article 2 and Article 9 are the only sections that propose different requirements in the MTMC. Article 2, right now you can't have a building within 5 feet of the town line, because of what I already mentioned, that a lot of the parcels in this area cross the town lines. If you said you can't have a building within 25 feet of a town line, you pretty much couldn't develop much of this area in terms of the geometry and the terrain and the property lines. So that's an exception in number 2. And in number 9, the issue that there were some concerns expressed on earlier is the proponent has asked a reduction in the separation from the zoning district line from 100 feet down to 50. The board will hear the concerns with that on Monday night and may decide to increase that. I don't know if they'll go to 100 but they asked me to map basically what a 100-foot swath looks like taken out of these properties, which would leave not a lot of land left, and then a 50. And then we have seen over on the IB lot, A lot in particular, that was reduced to 50 feet. And with the berm that existed there, or that was requested there, and the growth on top of it, you can't see anything at 50 feet. So if done correctly, we're fairly confident. The concerns that were expressed related to the location of the zone line. The location of the zone line, which I'll be checking tonight or tomorrow maybe, is that zone line might be in the middle of that Lackey Dam Road and Oakhurst Roads, which means almost 25 to 30 feet of that setback might actually be in the roadway, which would only leave 20 feet of screening. And if that's the case, the board definitely needs to reconsider that number. So the board was more concerned of taking a swath 100 feet wide of private property and having to push back in that weirdly configured area and not use that. If a bunch of that is actually in the right-of-way, then the numbers can change. It's a very relevant point that was brought up by the Hutnicks. So we will take a look at that Monday night, and that number might change. And Article 21 is height and bulk regulations. The proponents, they're the same as OLI except for height. The proponents have requested a height of 60 feet, but only if the building is fully sprinklered. So the fire department's looking at that. They didn't have huge initial concerns because it requires sprinkling, and they do have a ladder truck, and frankly the nearest responding ladder truck would be Northbridge. But they are just taking a second look at that and making sure they're comfortable with that. So, and 22 is the definition of warehouse distribution. I believe he took that from the standard industrial classification or the NAICS code. So that's where this definition came from. So all of those articles are about this potential for these 2 Fortune 500 companies to come into town and or into the towns of Northbridge, of Douglas, Uxbridge, and Sutton. And these are the changes that need to happen to allow that to occur. And frankly, with the nature of the land in that area, it's actually not a bad idea.
All right, I don't want to speak negatively about any of this, because obviously, you know, we're still working on it.
Great.
But just for a mental image, and again, I'm not looking for particulars, but are the Fortune 500 companies, are they looking to do something that's more on the light industrial side? Are they looking to do more commercial, more retail?
They're
You know,
looking to do warehouse and distribution.
okay, so they're not talking about putting a mall per se, but these could be good businesses like a Prime Metal, like an IBA that's gonna come in that could employ residents in town, and because of the location, to your point, you have easy access to 146, which
Yeah.
means they're not gonna be going down Central Turnpike or some of the other more commonly used roads in town.
No, absolutely not.
And being someone who is in the northeastern corner of the town, I definitely appreciate the fact that you were thinking of Wilkes per se, because you're right. If something on that scale were to go in aggregate, then it's hard enough with what we have getting through the lights.
No, it's a very tenuous, limited capacity intersection. It absolutely cannot handle any kind of large scale.
But
Yeah.
this location,
Perfect.
perfect.
Yeah, especially because you have two potential intersections, ramps you can go, and they're both below capacity right now, but in particular, number 4, just south, because Lackey just slides right out to exit 4, and you can go north or south there. You wouldn't even have to backtrack Oakhurst onto LaSalle, though you could in terms of worker traffic or whatever, and have very minimal impact. Any kind of larger traffic, you would probably take right turns and go straight out to the highway.
And to the point of the family that was here before, I'm assuming notice has gone out. You know, the impacted residents will have a chance to.
Well, here's the deal. This is a zoning change, so law does not require notification of anybody
Oh.
in terms of zoning change. So the ad goes in the paper, and the ad goes to all abutting towns, and it goes to CMRPC and DHCD. Our practice has always been to notify affected landowners in terms of ownership, and generally abutters, including those across the roadway. We got this dropped in our lap the day before ads were due. We had 0 time to do those courtesy notifications we usually do. So that's why the Hutnicks didn't know about this.
Okay.
As soon as they found out about this, Paul, their son, gave me a call, and we made sure we afforded time to hear those concerns. But yeah, it is typically our practice, though not required to do that courtesy notification. This is the 1 year in a long time that timing just hasn't worked out.
Okay, yeah, seeing residents come before us, it did feel a little out of the norm, so I appreciate that,
Not the
that
norm.
explanation.
All right.
John or Jeff, do you have any last comments for Jen before she departs? Actually, no, we have one
No.
more.
So this extends from Whitens Road down to Lackey Dam Road? Is that parcel?
No, it doesn't go, it goes to the town line. Our zoning only goes to the town
Right, I
line.
understand
And
that.
then Douglas has different zoning.
Zoning, right, but
Though it's
the-
industrial in
But
nature.
the overall zone, like the was the
Oh, on
MTI?
the right-hand side, on
Yeah.
the east side of 146, yeah, it kind of slides along Lackey Dam Road until it gets to the Uxbridge town line, and then there's a chunk there that is currently zoned agriculture
Yeah.
in Uxbridge, which they need to rezone.
Okay,
So there's actually 2 parcels there in Uxbridge that would need to be rezoned. So in Douglas, they're already zoned appropriately, but Uxbridge is not zoned appropriately.
So if they, either Uxbridge or Douglas their zoning doesn't change, we now have the zoning changes
We have,
that, with the purpose has now been defeated, really.
yes and no, I don't want to get into particulars, but not both of the Fortune 500 companies will straddle town lines. So one of the Fortune 500 companies would likely be entirely within the town of Sutton.
But
And
we
basically what you end up with is, it's already office light industrial. All you're doing is adding warehouse distribution. That's the only use you're adding, and you're eliminating solar, and you're making a few uses permitted. So it's the same as today, same exact zoning that's been allowed for the last 20+ years, add warehouse distribution. So we're not making massive changes.
and the setbacks are slightly different as well.
Yes, if we don't readjust those.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. So yeah, but any project that would have straddled the town lines, Douglas's zoning works with warehouse distribution. Uxbridge, if they don't rezone, they're calling a special. They called a special town meeting already. They've scheduled one, so.
Okay.
So we'll see.
What percentage of the land is in Uxbridge? Is it,
Sutton has the bulk. Uxbridge has 2 parcels. They total a good chunk, almost 100 acres. So.
So if these businesses go in, who gets the excise taxes and?
You had to ask that question, so let me address it. How we envision it is, and this is why Nick Nunemacher didn't necessarily want buildings that straddle town lines, because you've got to negotiate. But that's kind of what we do in that office. So here's the town line, you have a building that straddles it. We require that the town line be pinned exactly. so it's on an approximate town line. So if a building goes over the line, we know exactly how much square footage is in A and exactly how much is in B. So the building assessment is not hard, as long as the proponents realize that A's tax rate is different than B's tax rate, and A's valuation methods may be slightly different than B's. And they don't try to apply for abatements in either town or whatever. In terms of additional tax fees, like personal property tax and excise, that becomes a different exercise. I did ask council to try to take all the out of that if, say, town A has 40% and town B has 60%, that we write right into the regulations that then any other than real estate taxes that are clearly defined by square footage and area, that those other taxes be automatically split per the amount of the building that's in each town. And he clonked me on the head and said, no, you don't start playing with tax assessment in a zoning bylaw. No. You can say vague stuff that, the town should commit to an equitable sharing based on square footage, blah, 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 as a directive kind of to the assessors down the line. And you can even work on that during the permit and approval process, but I wanted to have it nice and clean and clear in the zoning bylaw, and you can throw
How
that
about a
out, right?
requirement that we actually have the parking lot in Sutton?
What we're really focused on is trying to get 2 Fortune 500 companies to locate in this area. And we'll work out the details of who gets the excise tax, who gets the personal property, and, we'll work with this board, and other towns will work with their boards to come up with a reasonable, assessment of these different fees.
And I know you have a great working relationship with the managers and administrators in the other communities, so I'm sure, we will not get left out in the lurch.
At all. I was just trying to make it more cut and dry, but I got stomped on.
Again, worst comes to worst, we get the parking lot, it's win-win.
Can I ask just one more question? Is there a TIF or anything
There's no
being
speak of
considered,
that yet.
and
There's no talk of that yet.
Is that something that can then
It's
also be worked
possible,
out?
it's all
between the-
possible, but then, that TIF would have to be approved by 2
Everyone.
different communities. If it is,
3 different.
depending upon what the layout of this building is, or buildings. So, yeah, that would be an additional issue that would have to be combined.
Yeah, they're not talking in that detail yet, since obviously this is a significant hurdle they have to clear before they want to spend any time or money on that kind of stuff.
And there's no guarantees anyways, even if we go through this and the other communities do, that it will happen, because that's the nature of things.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
But at least we're positioning ourselves.
Right, and they need to make, and we're moving fast because they need to make some siting decisions, and this is an opportunity. We hate to miss that opportunity to at least have the discussion. Articles 23 and 24 are part of the same effort. I'm working with the Highway Department to ensure the town's compliance with the 2016 Mass MS4 general permit from DEP, so stormwater management permit. And so this bylaw is required for compliance with provisions 4 and 5 of that general permit. And so it basically is just about what you do with stormwater if it's not within the conservation's jurisdiction and it's not part of like a site plan process. So if you're Joe and you own a property and you decide you're tired of looking at the trees, you're gonna clear cut it all and start stumping it and mickeying with it, but you're not within 100 feet of a wetland or 200 feet of a great pond, so the Concom can't, and you're not under site plan review because it's just your house lot, then we have seen over time significant issues with land disturbance, runoff, siltation. Had a recent issue where a disturbance it was 300 plus feet from a wetland, and the silt from the project ended up in the wetland anyways because it was such an extreme slope and such huge volume. So this required regulation from the state deals with those issues. Land disturbance, particularly that's not already covered by Concom or covered through site plan review with the planning board. They do recommend that you reference this in site plan, which is what Article 24 is, just referencing this reg, that you need to make sure you're in compliance with this reg. But this really says if you're disturbing 2,500 square feet or more, you bring whatever you have for plans or drawings to the building department. If you're on a flat piece of land and you're just disturbing 2,500 square feet and it's no big deal, the building commissioner can just give you an administrative approval. You can go on your merry way and not really spend little or no money. If you are disturbing land on a slope, in a sensitive area with sensitive soils, or a significant amount, and this would all be detailed in the regs that are required to be written to go with this bylaw, that have to be reviewed and approved by you in a public hearing after the bylaw is written, then you have to submit stormwater management plans, topography plans, all of the things that you would during site plan review to prove that the public and private abutting roadways, your abutters, any resources that could be impacted will not be impacted, that you are adequately dealing with potential impacts. That process doesn't require a public hearing, but it requires a submittal of necessary materials to the building commissioner for review by himself and or the town's consulting engineer or other appropriate people to make sure that everybody is protected.
So this isn't a situation where we're necessarily transferring authority from one board to another board or one office or another. What we're doing is we're just adding extra layers, extra contingencies.
holes.
Exactly.
We're plugging
And you know something? I think this is wonderful because when I first ran for the Board of Selectmen, I did some door knocking and I came upon a resident, and no address, no street, nothing in this moment. But, and I think I came and talked to you of a situation where there was a new house that was built in above him. And as a result of what had happened, clear cut, water was coming in and there was nothing that could be done. So I'm assuming that something like this type of regulation, now the town has the ability to say, hold on here.
This has the potential for some effects. You need to give me this, this, and this to show me it's not gonna have a negative effect. Exactly. It's plugging a hole that's not covered by Concom and not covered by planning.
Okay. And I'm assuming there would be communication nonetheless
Oh, yeah.
between planning and building
Yeah,
and Concom.
absolutely, because, I mean, if the building commissioner gets a set of stormwater, calcs, he's gonna give it to the town's consulting engineer. We're gonna be
Right.
talking about, like we do on everything anyways, but yeah. It's nice, it's required by the state, but it really is gonna provide a service that we've been lacking for a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the important part, is that this is gonna help us with our MS4 permitting process, which has become stricter in recent years.
Now, does this have anything to do with, like a larger project, or is this like, let's say an individual family home got built next to you, do they
Yeah.
have to?
Any disturbance over 2,500 square feet, so that's, most single-family homes are gonna disturb that. So again, it's not meant to place a burden on them. If you are building a single-family home and you're not on the top of a hill or you're not in a sensitive area, you're already providing your building plans to the building department, so you're bringing in your plans and he's doing your administrative review while he's looking at your building plans. If he sees you're on the top of a hill, now, instead of just requiring what's allowed under code, he will have this to say, you know what, you need to give me some stormwater calcs and a plan for handling when you clear this hill and you start moving this soil, what's gonna happen? So you're not, you're already filing your building plans with the building department. This just gives him an ability to catch the peripheral effects that the code doesn't let him go after right now.
Yeah, I think that's key because obviously a lot of the easy buildable space in town has been built and
Yeah.
they're making inroads into places that a few years ago might not have been easy to build.
Yes. Absolutely. So in 24 just references, per the request of the state, it references this regulation in site plan review.
Oh,
So,
perfect.
I mean, we already do stormwater management and site plan review, but it just refocuses kind of the spotlight on how important that is.
Excellent. Jeff, anything? Jonathan?
Again, this is just a draft warrant. It's still can be amended. The planning board is looking to amend. I'm looking to amend a couple of articles and negotiating with parties. So, the final warrant that you will have will look very similar to this, but there may be some slight adjustments to it.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
All right, next up, we have town manager's update. Jim? Oh, and thank you, Jen, appreciate the
You're welcome.
informative discussion.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item is we are considering putting a new island at West Sutton Road and Central Turnpike. This issue came up during the West Sutton Village District hearings that we went through last year. And almost everybody, all the residents in that general vicinity expressed concern with traffic at that intersection. What happens is people drive down Central Turnpike heading east, and they cut that corner at Central Turnpike. It's easily done. They don't go out 90 degrees and turn, and they just cut that corner. That's led to a lot of near misses and one actual cycling. I think that was a fatality at that. There used to be an island there that clearly delineated. You would do a 90-degree turn and turn into West Sutton Road, and you'd be fine. So the idea is the highway department will go out and paint the island and kind of start to let people know that this is coming. We are looking to do this. I haven't seen the island design or anything yet at this point. I just want to let the board know and let the public know that we are looking at this. It is defined by the residents in that area as a concern of theirs, and it's really a relatively easy fix for that particular area. So I'll continue to keep the board advised on this matter as we go forward, but I just wanted to give you a heads up as we're starting to look at it. Tripoli, I think you're all aware, we had another code red announcement that on Tuesday, September 10th, letting the public know of additional aerial spraying. The state did spray a couple of times. They sprayed the Wilkinsonville neighborhood and South Sutton and Manchog and so forth. It's my understanding that the state has now done aerial spraying in this area. That can still change if we have a increased heat wave and the mosquitoes are still alive. But the evening temperatures have started to cool down. Last night was fairly chilly, and tonight will be fairly chilly. So, the state is doing what they have intended to do, and I think it's having an impact. There are still Tripoli cases popping up in Rhode Island. I think I just heard that today. So, for any further announcements, we will use the Code Red system for this. I encourage people to go to the town's website and sign up for Code Red if you're not already a member of that. So anyway, the next item is Central Turnpike repaving. The town received a signed contract back from J.H. Lynch last week. They are planning to start work in a few weeks in October. They anticipate 30 to 45 days for completion of the work on Central Turnpike. We are, obviously we'll have details and so forth. We have yet to figure out the roadway management plan during the pavement, when the paving will take occur and so forth, but that'll all be forthcoming. Town manager's evaluation will take place next Tuesday, October 1st. So I think the board is well aware that submit the evaluations to Deb. She'll compile them and put together the summary, and then we go through the rankings at the next meeting. Finance and Warrant Committee has a new member, Daniel Lamoureux. He lives in off of Boston Road, and he will be joining the committee. So that now we have 3 new members of the Finance Committee, which is 30% of the group. So exciting new time for that group. Obviously, the board will sign the warrant at the next meeting. Fall town meeting is Monday, October 21st. And last but not least, the Green Community Awards were today. Doreen DeFazio represented the town of Sutton at the awards. There were a lot of awards given out. 91 community received Green Community Awards today. And, when we became a green community, there were only 112 total green communities in the state of Massachusetts. Now, there are that number has grown significantly. You know, the typical Green Community Award is every 2 years for any municipality, because it's very difficult to get the award. What we got today was September 17th, and have it, all the projects completed by December 31st to be eligible to apply in March. The positive is, we only got one award for a hot water heater at the elementary school. We did apply for two hot water heaters at the Early Learning Center and the elementary school. The hot water heater in the Early Learning Center died in May. We needed to do an emergency replacement of that. And obviously, we paid for it, and we weren't able to get grant funding for that project 3 months after that. So that was taken away, as well as the chiller project. We did apply for replacement of the existing chiller. The town put $100,000 in the capital budget for that. We applied for $150,000 from the state. That was denied. So, you know, a lot of different reasons why I can envision, but ultimately, you know, we've had great success in replacing a lot of equipment, HVAC equipment that is near or are at the end of life. So, you know, we had roughly, we received almost $1 million in Green Communities grants to date, and great success on this program. So we are going to go back to the drawing board, figure out what we can ask for. We've pretty much done a lot down at the schools, and I think we've reached the end of that. And we will put the chiller in as part of the capital plan for a May town meeting. But good news, you know, Doreen obviously was disappointed we didn't get a lot more, but she'll continue to fight on and look for more. That's all I have for updates.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Jonathan?
I just have a question in regards to the new island at West Sutton Road and Central Turnpike. So if you're going eastbound on Central Turnpike heading, you know, towards 146.
Yep.
Is it good to direct traffic as you could turn left onto West Sutton Road, the island that you're talking about?
What's your question?
I'm just asking about the little island, the new island you want to put in, or we want to put in at West Sutton Road and Central Turnpike.
Right.
So as I'm going eastbound, heading towards 146 direction.
Right.
Going through West Sutton, is it to direct traffic as you turn left onto West Sutton Road from Central Turnpike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and there's a lot of different issues on Central Turnpike at West Sutton Road and Central Turnpike in its entirety. And a lot of it is the speed at which vehicles travel down that road. They often exceed the speed limit. So if they're traveling 50 miles an hour down Central Turnpike, which is not unheard of, and they take that corner, they're not really slowing down to see what's coming down West Sutton Road or anything else. They're just some people taking a sharp turn into the oncoming traffic on West Sutton Road, and creates a dangerous situation. So we're trying to avoid that and try to prevent that from happening in the future. So that's the idea behind this.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, I take a left and a right out of there a lot of times. It is kind of blind too, as you're on West Sutton Road trying to take a left or a right.
Right.
It is kind of challenging to see, and oftentimes if you look one way and you see nothing, you had looked one way and there's nothing coming, you look right and you look back again, there's a car coming.
Yeah.
It's a lot of blind spots. But I do think that this is probably step one.
Yeah.
I think step two is to consider a light. You know, like if anywhere, because one of the problems on that road is speed, right? Maybe we need to start thinking about, maybe not in the next couple years, but thinking about putting a light there, maybe strategically someplace else along the road, just to start to slow things down, because it is a pretty dangerous intersection.
Yeah, we can look at that. I don't know that the state would be on board with that. You know, it's generally a road. There are side streets off of that road, but to set up a light for a particular side street, West Sutton Road or Manchog Road or any other road that feeds into Central Turnpike, I mean, I don't see a light at the end of Manchog Road to turn onto Central Turnpike.
No.
It's just the reality. So I don't know the rules, but I do think the state would have an issue of putting, traffic signals up on that turnpike, if you will. So good point.
I'm not saying
and
it's
we'll-
something we should absolutely do. I'm just saying it's something we should consider because
Yeah.
I know that speed's a real issue on that road, and particularly through the village there.
Oh, yeah.
If you put a light in there, that could slow things down a little bit. I don't know. We have to do traffic studies. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's just something that I'm thinking about because it is a dangerous intersection, and there are other ones along that road. I'm not saying we could put one on. We would absolutely not want to put one on every intersection coming across there, but
Right.
there are ones that are more dangerous than others, and
Yeah.
but particularly if it's something to consider. That's all I'm putting out there right now. I mean,
know,
I think
it-
it makes sense to take this step.
It's
You
easy
know?
to come down West Sutton Road and take a right-hand turn onto Central Turnpike. The trick is taking a left-hand
Yes.
turn. That's when you really have to,
Pay attention.
pay attention and take your time, be
Yeah.
patient,
Yeah, especially different parts of the day, but
yeah.
yeah, it's just something that, as I was thinking about it. I do think this is the right step for the first step, but let's see. Happy to see that the repaving is going to get started. A question I have is I know we have some other projects that we have committed to this year as well. Are those
Yep.
going to be done by the end of the year? or
That's our
before
plan.
paving season's over?
We are out to bid right now. Bids are due October 2nd or 3rd, I believe, for, paving as well as crack sealing and other types of treatment that we have on roadways. And we will, our plan is to use our Chapter 90 funds to do the roads that I explained or presented to the board a couple of weeks ago.
What is the typical, do you know the typical date that they stop making asphalt? Is it-
I've seen paving go on into December, but, end of November, beginning of December, it generally slows down. And, Northbridge did Purgatory Road after the West End Creamery one year, and it snowed out. And, they had to wait for the snow to melt to finish the paving job, which wasn't, I guess it was an issue, but, they did finish it off.
Okay, thank you. And then I'd just like to welcome Daniel Lamoureux to the Finance Committee. It's great to see people continuing to volunteer their time to
Yeah.
serve the town. And then as far as the green communities, it's bittersweet. We've received a lot of money over the years, and I guess the spigot's slowing down a little bit as more communities join in. So, but at least we've taken advantage of it, and we're one of the early adopters of it.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have continued success in the future. But
Yeah, I agree.
so thank you,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Just quickly on a couple of these things. On the traffic island, are there a lot of hoops to jump through to put that in? It's not like finding a salamander on your property or something like that, where we've got to deal with regulations and.
I don't know all of them, and I think it's best that maybe I have Matt Stencil come in and present to the board as to what the technical plan is. I'm just kind of letting the board know that it's coming. That's our thought process. Jen and Matt have been talking, and I've been a part of that as well, and we feel it's the way to go.
I think so.
But all the rules and regulations are important, and we're gonna have to follow them, whether it's Mass Highway or, Matt will follow them, but I don't know what those regulations are.
I think it's needed. I think it's, particularly if you get a large vehicle turning left onto West Sutton Road, a truck or something.
Yeah,
It's dangerous there, so. It's nice to see, hopefully, the spraying come to an end. And welcome to Daniel Lamoureux to the Finance Committee. So,
Great.
All right, thank you. Jim, excellent update.
Thank you.
I'm very excited about the paving, obviously. I know that's been a big concern for many residents, so it'd be nice to see once the first get in ground, so we'll look forward to that. In terms of the island, I'm assuming it's all gonna be in terms of construction done in-house?
Yes,
So the highway will do the construction, and I'm assuming, I know we have curbing at different points in town that
We
we'll be
do.
able to utilize those supplies.
we do.
So in terms of cost, it's not going to be outrageous.
No, we'll be working with our existing budget to construct it. You know, I don't think we'll be touching Chapter 90 money to build this small island.
And that's the key. It's not going to be vast. It's just going to be
No.
just enough to.
To kind of deter people from cutting that corner.
Right. Very, very wise, particularly considering we had a fatality, so that's good. In terms of the Code Red announcements, I would like to just take a moment to thank Pam Nichols in particular, because I know she was the point person on all of the updates. She did the research, and I know she spread it throughout Town Hall, so thank you, Pam. I'd also like to thank Cheryl Rowinski. She was the one who recorded both of the messages to the communities that went out there, and again, I think they were some of the best Code Red messages we've had.
Yeah.
She was clear, concise, articulate, and at least when I heard it from my own perspective, I was kind of calmed. Okay, you know, it really sounded to me, we knew what was going on, we were in communication with the state,
Yeah.
and there was nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
Also, Christine, I know she plays a role, as well as the fire department
Yeah.
as well, so thank you to everyone who helped get those messages out. Lastly, I would like to thank our friend Doreen for her efforts. As I will say, and I will say as long as she comes before us, whenever she's here, it's about money. It's the right type of green.
Yeah.
And okay, I understand that 43,000 was less than expectations, but it's still $43,000.
Right.
That is money that cannot be overlooked, considering the fact that this would be something that we would have to do.
Yeah.
I believe Dave did a great job, Dave Hall, the chairman, the last time Doreen was here talking about that simple fact, that all of these dollars that we get from the state for the green communities are items that we would have to pay for out of the capital fund.
Yeah.
So having this, it's just allowed us to utilize those monies elsewhere.
Right.
Based on need. So this is just excellent, and who knows? Maybe next year we'll be back more in line.
There you go.
Because we got to get over that $1 million hump. All right. I have nothing else. Why don't we boil or roll together the announcements, roundtable, and correspondence all into one? Jonathan?
I have nothing, I'm good.
Jeff?
Just two things, I think, fairly quickly. We just wanted to mention again the efforts from Will Edwards and Katie Fields putting together the 9/11 ceremony. That was, they did a great job on that. Jesse spoke very eloquently and emotionally, and it was just a nice ceremony. And you know, it's funny because 9/11 is for us, it's a memory. For the younger people, it's a historical event. So it's kind of nice to kind of meld those together. So thanks again to them for all their work. Just the other thing I wanted to mention really quickly is that what's not on the warrant, which is the sewer project. And I know we talked about it at the end of our last meeting, but I think all of us, I want to speak for everyone. I know afterwards thinking about that, had some questions, not so much reservations, but just questions about the project. So I'm glad that we've kind of put that off so all those different questions can get answered, and you know, we can feel good about putting it forward. So
Yeah.
I'm glad it didn't show up on the warrant.
Good.
All right, thank you. I have a couple. I'd like to thank everyone who volunteered their time on Saturday at two events, one that I was able to attend and one I wasn't. The one I wasn't able to attend, the Historical Society, was again behind Town Hall. I think the turnout was a little less than the previous one, but from what I understand, they did manage to clean some more headstones, and I think they reset another one. So
Yeah.
thank you to everyone who's out there, because I was with another group over in First Church down in the basement peeling apples. There will be over 200 pans of apple crisp ready to go at Waters Farm Days. So I hope people are hungry, because peeling, I think Joyce Smith mentioned to us before the meeting, 22 bushels of apples. I did 2.5 myself. Let me tell you, I don't know if I want to eat another apple for a while, but thank you. There was a good group, and there was people coming and going throughout the day. So to me, that was symbolic of a lot of things that happen in town. Maybe you can't commit the whole day, but we have such a wonderful community that people will give an hour, give her 2, or give her 3. Because at the same time that was going on, it was homecoming down at the high school. I know the football team They didn't get the outcome that they were hoping for, but from everything that I heard relayed for me, they did play very, very well. It's a young team, and there's a lot of potential that we will see in the next year or two. I did happen to attend a fundraiser for the Sutton football boosters, and there was a lot of positive energy there amongst the parents. So we got good things to come. So I don't know when the next home game is, but I'm going to make sure I get down there, to cheer on the home team. Lastly, besides the food pantry list, just a reminder, on Saturday, it's the annual chicken barbecue down at the Dud. And as Dave Carasius mentioned when he was before us a few weeks ago, the funds for this particular chicken barbecue are going to help the Tuttle Post in Auburn, which suffered a catastrophic loss. The building was burned to the ground. Fortunately, no lives were lost, but all proceeds raised at this chicken barbecue are going to go to help, another post, rebuild, rise like a phoenix from the ashes. And as far as the food pantry list, it's relatively small, and primarily it's just cleaning supplies. So dish soap, laundry detergent, hand soap, preferably in the liquid form, but bars are okay. Cleaning supplies, canned meats, that's a usual. Deodorants for both men and women. Single package toothbrushes, and paper towels. And I believe that's all I have. So, that being the case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hearing a motion and second. Any last comments? Any last questions? All right, passes 3-0. Thank you, everyone.